quest for knowledge, crazy experiments, blowing stuff up, and a dragon leader. Yes, I thought you'd like that. Let's go inside the lab with the Izzet Guild.
The Izzet League is about red and blue mana, and so you get the creativity and passion of red and the methodical intelligence of blue in one. In other words, the Izzet are the world's mad scientists and engineers and thinkers. The Izzet understand the nature of magic better than the other guilds do, and in the absence of the Guild Pact, the Izzet weren't as affected as some of the other guilds were. Nemesis had gone missing, and a lot of the higher echelon guild mages were in a little bit of a funk about the lack of connection to their guildmaster, which was expressed through a nearly telepathic link called the Firemind.
So at the end of Agents of Artifice, which is the book between Ascension and now, Jace has kind of gone around through the multiverse. We don't know what he's been up to, but he comes back to Ravnica, and he kind of wants to relax, just like get away from it all. And as he's there, things start to happen, and he notices that the Izzet are starting to build. They're starting to conduct experiments. Where's Nemesis been? We don't know. Some say he went to his area in Nivix and hung out there to recoup. But he's also part of the originator of the Firemind, which means he can send messages to his entire guild and have them function without him actually being present. So we kind of get this sense that there's something going on, and Jace is going to get to the bottom of it.
Overload, the Izzet mechanic, was actually the first mechanic that we put into the set. Ken Nagel, the set's lead, had come up with it. Red and blue are, of all the colors, are the ones that are most spell-based. And so they tend to have the theme on spells. Izzet, in the very first set, had Replicate, which also was spell-oriented. And we knew that they wanted to be the spell color, because that is one of their shticks, is that they're constantly experimenting and that they're very spell-oriented. And so Overload seemed like a perfect fit. It was very good for a spell thing. It had a lot of power in it. Ken was enamored with it, and it went in right away.
We wanted it to sort of have the same feel of Replicate, the original Izzet mechanic. The idea is that Replicate let you sort of cast as many copies of a card as you want. We wanted with Overload it to cast a ton of copies of a card, but just be one for each target that you could cast the card for on the battlefield. Sort of like the card Radiate from a long time ago, one of Ken's favorite cards. So the idea was you could either have a localized effect that affected one creature, one permanent, or one thing, or you could pay the overload cost and have it affect everything.
When Ken Nagel handed the thing off, the idea was you can target one thing or it targets all of the things. It turns out that is a ridiculous rules nightmare to have different amounts of targeting happening depending on how you play the spell. So we struggled for, I want to say, a few weeks to find a wording of it that was not hideous. And finally, Matt Tabak came up with the idea of replacing target with each. And that's just all you do. And all of a sudden, all the cards read naturally in English either way, and you don't have things like Shroud and Hexproof messing it up because, well, if it's each, then it just gets them all, and hooray. So that hack, which it took us a really long time to figure out, was actually the key to making the cards read in natural English in a reasonable way at all. I would be embarrassed to show you what those cards look like before he figured that out, so I'm glad I don't have to.
The Dragon Guildmaster Niv-Mizzet is the Parun of the Izzet League. He's its founder. He wasn't particularly interested in running a guild, but he felt like he would have been left out if he didn't have a guild of his own. He's a being that's over 10,000 years old, and so his guild was mainly just to pass the time and amuse himself. In the original Ravnica story, Nemesis tangled with some monsters and was badly injured and had to skulk off to recover. That meant that his area was left empty for a while. Only recently has Nemesis returned, and he seems to have returned with either a new sense of purpose or a newfound insanity. The guild is still trying to figure out which.
So Niv-Mizzet, we made him bigger this time. He's a 5/5 instead of a 4/4. And he draws a card every time he damages your opponent. And he also has an ability that can just deal damage to anything he wants. When it happens to be your opponent, you get to draw more cards. So he's combining drawing from Izzet with the blue side, the damage Izzet from the red side, to one little package of a giant smart dragon burning your opponent and getting smarter.
One of the things that I've learned from working on kids' games briefly while also working on other stuff here at Wizards is that When storyline characters are strong enough that you want to play them in Constructed, everything is basically better. You don't want them to be so strong that they're by far the most powerful things and there's nothing else to do, but if your storyline characters aren't showing up in your strongest decks, something is wrong. Last time it made me happy when Niv Mizzet started showing up in like the Guillaume Wafotapa blue-red control deck or whatever, but that was a pretty fringe deck, and this time I think he might show up a little bit more.
Finally, we realized that the original Niv Mizzet dealt damage and drew cards and was totally awesome because of that. We don't need to fight inertia if it's what makes the card cool. So we decided, we'd make him a little bit bigger, we'd make him, even more aggressive. Now he requires more of a commitment to both blue and red, but whenever he hits you, he draws cards. Whenever he damages you, he draws cards. He can take out your entire team. We wanted it to be, if your opponent cast Niv Mizzet against you, we wanted you to be scared. And we wanted you to be scared while still feeling like the classic Izzet card that really defines the type of gameplay that a blue-red deck wants to have. And we're really, really happy with how he turned out.
My ingenuity, my obsession, my guild. Izzet. Won't you join us?